So I want you to write in big words on the top for this subject, memory palace. Now, this is kind of one of those like more indirect type of lessons. It's going to help out with a lot of things, but it's not a direct lesson in terms of specific to SAT or specific just to college prep. What this is it's a learning tool. It's a learning tool where you deal with lists of things by using a physical location that you're very familiar with. Okay, so this was actually something where it was like old philosophers from ancient times that came up with this, and they actually the most famous person that you guys might be able to relate to is actually more Sherlock Holmes. Okay, they say Sherlock Holmes had a really great memory palace that allowed him to recall things and how things work. Another thing is that there's actually like memory competitions where people are given like strings of numbers, or they're given a list of things that they need to memorize, and this actually helps them out in figuring that process out. Okay, so what is a memory palace? Okay, let's use actually this room as a memory palace. Okay, what that means is the physical location, the physical places and physical things in this room can act as placeholders for us. Okay, so I'm going to say, for example, if I'm just using my room, I'm going to start in a clockwise manner if possible, or judging by where I walk into the room. I'm going to say that the first thing is my printer. Okay, that's going to be location number 1. Second one's going to be my whiteboard. Okay, number 3 is going to be the sign. Okay, number 4 is the bookcase, and I'm going to use number 5 as the file cabinet in the corner. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to make sure that you use things that don't repeat themselves. So you don't want to say chair 1, chair 2, chair 3, chair 4, because you can mix up those chairs very easily. You also don't want to use a table in one room, and then when you move to another room, use another table. That's the same thing. Okay, so you want to make sure that your physical locations are different. Now, I'm going to use the Chinese zodiac. Do you guys have the list of the Chinese zodiac down? No. Okay, but I'm going to help you guys with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to memorize the first 5 spots, and you're never going to forget them anymore. Okay, let me show you how. The first thing is that we're going to make things as ridiculous as possible. The more ridiculous something is, the easier it is for you to remember. Okay, so the first animal on the Chinese zodiac is actually the rat. Okay, the rat is going to be where the printer is, because that's my first location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, we're going to imagine as if you walked up to the printer, you hit copy, and rats just start flooding out of the printer. Okay, now there's paper thrown everywhere, there's chewed up bits, and you don't worry about, but there's probably rat poop somewhere. Okay, so that's a scene. It's a crime scene already. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. What's the first animal of the Chinese zodiac? The rat. Okay, the next one is gonna come right here to my whiteboard. It's the ox. An ox is just a male cow, if you were to think about that. So you can think about me with my black and white marker drawing a giant cow up here, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can even think of me with milk, right? Somehow I just splashed milk all over it or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there's now milk dripping off of this whiteboard. Okay, what was position 1? Rat. Who was there? At the printer, there's a bunch of rats that just tore up all my work, tore up my printer, or there's rat poop coming out of it now. Number 2, we walk over the whiteboard. Now we see the ox, because that was linked to the cow and the milk being thrown all over it. Okay? Then we'll go over here to my sign. And you notice we've got the owl and the owl sign back there. And the third thing at the sign is actually a tiger. So I want you to imagine Tony the Tiger from Frosted Flakes eating the owl that I have, right? They're great. You see that? Okay. So what we have right here at our third spot is the tiger. Okay. You can even imagine that that black background now has orange stripes to it, and the tiger comes out and eats the owl, something like that. Okay. So number 1, we've got rat. Then we've got ox. And that? Tiger. Okay. Then we're going to move over to that little greenish bookcase that I have, right? And what we have here are rabbits, okay? So at this, let's see. I want you to help me come up with something about a rabbit or with rabbits. I could, number one, could imagine that this bookcase itself is a rabbit. We've got 2 giant bunny ears coming off the top, and this rabbit, this bookcase, is now jumping around my room. Do you see that? That's a possibility. Or you can think of 6 little rabbits, each in one little cubbyhole, right? And you can see, these rabbits are just chewing away at stuff, or you've got carrots and things like that sticking out, right? Maybe this bookcase is just filled with carrots, and you've got a rabbit going through his inventory, okay? So we got at spot number 1, we got a rat. Spot number 2, ox. Number 3, number 4, rat, okay? And then our number 5 is over at my file cabinet over there. We're gonna use the dragon, okay? So I could even imagine, let's imagine my file cabinet now has a dragon wrapped around it, and it's squeezing it, and then actually it just set all the papers on fire. Do you see that? Do you see how ridiculous my explanations are of these? Mm-hmm. But are you likely to forget them? Probably not. Here's the funny thing. Before you guys leave, you're gonna repeat to me exactly what these 5 are. But let me ask you this. What would most kids have done? They would have just gone off of the first letter maybe. R-O-T-R-G. But do you see how rat and rabbit now could be confused very easily, right? And so, yeah, you can come up with a, red or, I can't come up with your own sentence, just like the, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally type of thing, okay? Or Roy G. Biv, 4 colors of the rainbow. Yeah, PEMDAS. So there's always ways that we can use to memorize our lists of things, but what this one specifically is called the memory palace. Now, it's easier for me to memorize this than it is for you guys because I spend so much more time in this room than you do. Mm-hmm. But those 5 locations weren't very hard to memorize. And if you were just to list down the locations, you can actually imagine the physical location of what's happening there, right? And here's another fun part is now I can think of, okay, position 4 is now the bookcase. What was the bookcase? Rabbits. And now I can think before the rabbit was? Tiger. After? Dragon. Okay? Now, you're not necessarily going to use my room as your memory palace. Your memory palace needs to be your own physical things, okay? And here's the fun part. It doesn't have to just be a physical room. It can be things that are in a specific order for yourself. So for example, if you have different categories of memory palaces. My family is 4 people. Dad, mom, then me, then my brother in terms of age. So if we have a category of 4 things I need to memorize in order, I just hand the first thing to dad, hand the second thing to mom, I'm holding the 3rd one, and my brother is doing the 4th one, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Dad's fighting a giant rat. Mom just milked the cow and is now serving it for breakfast, right? I'm fighting a tiger. Or I'm fighting Tony the tiger for his Frosted Flakes. Do you see that? Yeah. And little brother is chasing a rabbit, trying to catch it with his bare hands. Do you see that? Okay? Yeah. And you have your own. Like, for example, I used to think, okay, every time I leave the house, I have my watch, my keys, and my wallet. 1, 2, 3. Or depending on what order you have things in. You have your own ways of coming up with your categories. You could even use your group of your 5 best friends, or if you have a team of some sort, whether a surf team or basketball team or etc., right? Think of it this way. Then what you can do is you can color code them as well. If you know Roy G. Biv, red is always the first layer. And if you run out of room, you change the color to orange. Now it's an orange rat here, right? You see that? Or there's some form of orange. I'm drawing the cow in orange, etc. Okay? So you can relayer those in order to do so. And so you can think of your own house. I'd like you to minimum give me 2 things or 2 rooms in your house that you could have 5 things of as your first 10 spots for your own memory palace. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So take a moment on your page that I've given you You can draw out two different.
Draw it.
Yeah, you can draw. I would like to, or at least draw locations and write what's there, right? I would draw a big square and write printer, whiteboard, sign,
So it's like looking
bookcase.
down on it.
Yeah, looking down at it. It's one of those things that if you were able to get this down at an early age, the more you use it, and the more you end up revisiting it, they become pretty solid in terms of what things are. I even have had kids who use the 50 states of the U.S. as 50 in order, and they have their own order due to where they visited first, or their own blueprint for it.